So Donald Trump has came out and he has endorsed Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer. Yeah, I actually said that out loud in 2024. That's where we're at. I feel like we are on the movie Idiocracy. I feel like that character now, just a dude of average intelligence. But in MAGA's world, I'm like Albert Einstein, and I'm just trying to get them to understand me, and they can't. I can't believe that we're actually having this conversation. But I've made a whole lot of wrestling analogies here on the channel, so I'm going to have fun with this one because I've been watching wrestling ever since I was a little boy. I don't ever remember being introduced to wrestling. It was just always on in the house. My mom and her dad, my grandpa loved it. Me and my grandpa watched the Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair classics from 1989 together. He was pulling for Steamboat. I was pulling for Flair. I always pulled for the villains in the wrestling world, so I want to go on record right now. My family can back me up on this. My friends can. I was never a Hulkamaniac, okay? I was always rooting for Roddy Piper over Hulk Hogan. I was hoping that Andre the Giant would squash Hogan at WrestleMania 3. The only time that I ever cheered for Hulk Hogan, ever, was when he did the match with Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. And that's because Sergeant Slaughter was doing this gimmick where he was now an Iraqi sympathizer, and it was during the Gulf War. So I was glad that Hogan won that one, but I couldn't wait for the belt to get taken off of him, and I was so glad when The Undertaker did it. And no, before you ask, I did not like Hulk Hogan either during the whole NWO phase. The only one that was decent in the NWO was Scott Hall. The rest of them was pathetic. I didn't like any of that except Scott Hall, the bad guy. Hey, yo, I loved him. But Hogan, I didn't even like him when he turned bad. So there's that. But this article that I'm reading here from Midas Touch, you'll think you're on the movie Idiocracy, but folks, this is real life. We're really here. Trump endorses Hulk Hogan's controversial beer. This is from JD Wolf. On Truth Social late last night, Trump posted an endorsement of Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer. Look at this, folks. This is real life. Hulk Hogan is doing beer, and if he's doing it, it must be good. Great looking can and logo. Give it a try. Look at this can and logo. I mean, this looks like a spoof of Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's what it looks like. It just looks like a Pabst Blue Ribbon spoof on some bad SNL skit. But Hogan spoke at the RNC convention where he ripped his American flag shirt and endorsed Trump. Trump posted a picture of Hogan's beer. In a recent interview with Theo Von, Trump said he doesn't drink because his brother was an alcoholic who urged him not to. During that interview, Trump repeated his advice to people: no drugs, no drinking, no cigarettes. Let's take a look at this clip here from Theo Von with Trump.
Yeah. I noticed at the events you don't drink, and you don't drink or smoke, right?
I don't drink or smoke.
You never have?
No, I never have. I had a great brother who taught me a lesson: don't drink. Don't drink. And he said, don't smoke. He smoked and he drank, and he was a great guy. He was a handsome, very handsome guy.
Is he older? He was older?
Quite a bit older, yeah. And he had a problem with alcohol and smoke a lot. But, I tell people, no drugs, no drinking, no cigarettes.
Yeah.
I tell that to my kids all the time. I'd say, no drugs, no drinking, no smoking.
Unless it's Hulk Hogan.
It was tough.
He'd always tell me, he'd say, never. So he was, really old enough that you would look up to somebody, and I'd look up to him anyway.
And you admire him?
Yeah, I admired so much about him. He had so much going. He had the look. He had an unbelievable personality, like an incredible personality.
What was his name, Donald?
His name was Fred Trump. And he had a problem with alcohol. He got addicted to it because they say alcohol is tougher than drugs to get off of. I don't know if you.
Oh man. So yeah. I mean, folks, he doesn't drink himself, but he's promoting Hulk's shitty beer. Right here, let's keep reading this article just for a minute. However, Trump himself profits off alcohol sales at his properties and is now promoting Hogan's beer, which has been mirrored in controversy. Hogan has faced accusations that he ditched his brand ambassadors for his beer after meeting them and finding out that they were black. Brand ambassador Essence Janae, I hope I'm saying that right, exposed Hogan in a series of TikTok videos alleging he ditched her and other brand ambassadors who were black and replaced them with white girls at his next event. Now, Hulk Hogan does have a history with racism. He was caught on tape talking about his daughter's boyfriend and used the N-word in that tape. Now, there were a lot of wrestlers that came out to his defense. and said that he wasn't a racist person. But then more and more things have just kept coming to light. And I think that it would be good to play this clip right here from Jesse Ventura, because he points out that we really shouldn't be surprised at all that Donald Trump would endorse someone like Hogan, or vice versa, because they've always pretty much been the same. Ventura tried to get the wrestling unionized, and it was Hogan who sabotaged that. Take a look at this, and then we're going to talk more about Hulk Hogan and all of his bullshit.
As far as Hogan goes, it doesn't surprise me, because when I was in wrestling in the 80s, I tried to unionize wrestling, and it was Hulk Hogan who cut my legs out from under me. Hulk Hogan went to Vince McMahon, ratted me out, and subsequently later on cost me my job. So it doesn't surprise me to see Hogan with the Republicans, because Hogan's as anti-union as you can get. There still is not a union in professional wrestling. The reason I tried to do it, I was in an elevator and ran into Gene Upshaw, the great tackle guard from the Oakland Raiders. Right. And Big Gene raised his finger up and looked at me and says, you boys need to form a union. I tried to do it, and it was Hulk Hogan who ratted me out to Vince McMahon, and subsequently I was fired and lost my job.
So yeah, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that Hogan would endorse Trump or vice versa. They've always been this way, really. It's kind of like on the show Better Call Saul at the end. Walter White had the best line in that whole series when he said, "So you've just always been this way." They've always been this way, folks. And I'm very familiar with Hulk Hogan because, like I said, I grew up watching him on TV. And one of the things that I do when I'm not making my own content and studying and diving into the world of politics, the way that I try to, take a breather and declutter my brain is to go listen to a wrestling podcast. And I'm a huge fan of Jim Cornette's Drive Through and the Jim Cornette Experience. I really love a lot of different wrestling podcasts. I love The Undertaker's 6 Feet Under podcast. I'm a big fan of that one. And I love hearing them talk about wrestling. And I can tell you, there are so many of them that really don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about Hulk Hogan. And if you really ever want to be truly entertained, go look up Hulk Hogan's Lies. This guy has just been going off on the most random lies you've ever heard, and they're easily provable. You can prove them debunked pretty quick. He said that he was once asked to play bass for the Rolling Stones. Now, Hulk Hogan did start off as a bass player, but he was asked to go on tour with the Stones, he says. He was also almost a bass player for Metallica, according to him. He said that he was called up to play for the Cincinnati Reds. And he also said that he was Elvis's favorite wrestler and that Elvis used to send him flowers when he wrestled in Memphis. But there's a big problem with that story. Elvis Presley died in 1977. Hulk Hogan debuted in Florida in July of 77, and he didn't make it to the Memphis territory until 1978. The wrestler that Elvis used to send flowers to was Jerry the King Lawler. He was Elvis's favorite wrestler. It was the Macho Man that got called up to play for the Reds. So Hulk Hogan loves to insert himself in other people's stories. Should sound pretty familiar. And he also said that he partied with John Belushi after WrestleMania 2. Said that him and John Belushi went and hung out and partied after WrestleMania 2. The only problem with that is WrestleMania 2 happened in 1986, and John Belushi passed away in 1982. So I don't know what's up with that. Maybe Hogan dove into Hunter S. Thompson's bag and was seeing Jim Belushi. I don't know. But or John Belushi. But Hulk Hogan has just had a long history of racism and lies. And then he said something on Logan Paul's podcast that just turned every wrestling fan's head. When he said that wrestling fans are very forgiving, he said, they've forgiven him for his racism and the mistakes that he's made because he says that wrestling fans have forgave Chris Benoit. Now, for those of you that don't know who Chris Benoit is, Chris Benoit in 2007, I believe it was, murdered his wife and his young son and then ended his own life. And I do not know of a wrestling fan who has forgave Chris Benoit for that one. That's one of those subjects that as a wrestling fan, when it comes up, you have a lot of different takes and a lot of different opinions on that one. Anyone that's ever watched wrestling and loves it for the art form that it is will tell you that in the ring, Chris Benoit was one of the best to ever do it. He's on anyone's Mount Rushmore of just in the ring wrestlers, but no one can forgive him for what it was that he did. He's not been in the Hall of Fame. He's never going to be in the Hall of Fame. There isn't DVDs and specials made anymore on him at all. He's a guy that has pretty much been erased from history. I think his matches are still on the network, but they're not highlighted, and it's not something that we talk about. But I've got a hot take for you, and I'll just go ahead and say it. Whatever happened with Chris Benoit, something snapped in that man's brain that caused that to happen. And we've learned a lot since then about CTE and brain injuries, and something clearly snapped in that dude's brain. Everybody that ever knew Chris Benoit talked about what a good guy he was and what a good dad he was and how much he loved his family. I am in no way defending Chris Benoit, and we're never going to forgive what happened, but you could make the argument that something definitely snapped and went wrong in that man's brain to cause him to do something that horrific. We're never going to forgive those actions, but I could at least make the argument that something snapped in his brain. What the hell's Hulk Hogan's excuse for being a racist asshole? What's his? You know, we're not going to forgive Hulk Hogan. We're just not. That's not something that we're going to do. And again, I don't mean that to give Chris Benoit a pass, but you could make the argument something definitely snapped in his brain, and yet Hulk Hogan just continues to go out there and be this kind of person every time he gets in front of a live microphone. He also recently made some comments about Kamala Harris, telling the crowd that he was going to body slam. Did they want to see him body slam Kamala? Did they want to see him drop the leg on her? And then he made jokes about her race the same way that Donald Trump did. So, you know, I think that Hulk Hogan looked over, saw Donald Trump's act working. He realized that his audience was every bit as stupid and pretty much the same audience. And so he just went where he felt comfortable. I think again, Trump empowers people, and he empowered Hulkamania, brother. I think that's what's happened here. So Hulk Hogan will never get a pass from me for his racism, and we're not going to forgive him. We haven't forgiven Benoit, and we're not going to forgive him. That's not happening. But it truly feels like we're just in this crazy, sick movie, and I feel like that character on Idiocracy just trying to wake people up. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'll be the first one to admit it. I really try my best to study things before I talk about it, try to develop an understanding about it. And I always say to you that I feel like I'm the one that's, you know, watching the man go crazy. I think it was Harold Ramis on the movie Stripes. You know, he played the straight guy next to Bill Murray's funny character. And he's always reacting to what he sees Bill Murray doing. And he said the only thing funnier than watching a man go crazy is watching a man watch a man go crazy. A lot of times I feel like that's who I am in this scenario. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm not the smartest. I'll admit it when I get it wrong. But I truly feel like we're on that movie now, and we're just trying to talk to people who are completely zombied out, and we can't make any sense out of it. And when you see those ridiculous images of Hogan and the beer cans, and there's people fired up and ready to vote for this crap, can you imagine, folks, what's going to happen if we were to ever have a second Trump term? That's why it is so important to vote. If you think it's crazy now, it would only get worse, and none of us would ever have a voice to speak out against it again. So get fired up, stay fired up, keep your eye on the ball, and let's vote for Kamala Harris, because, man, we're in the middle of that movie now. We are that character, and I just want to wake up from this nightmare. I don't know how you feel about it, but I definitely just want to wake up from this one.